Last Saturday began like any other work day. I clocked in, raised the shutters, and awaited my first table to arrive. My first table consisted of 4 females in their late teens to early 20s. 2 Caucasian, 1 African American, and 1 Asian. Their sweatshirts reinforced my suspicion that they were UCLA students. In an effort to wow her with my worldliness, I asked the Asian girl if she understood the Chinese word for hello. She did not. I then inquired if she understood the Japanese equivalent. She nodded comprehension. Although it was never exceptionally warm to begin with, their collective disposition froze over immediately afterward. Lacking any other explanation, I asked the Asian girl if my innocuous query had somehow offended her. She mumbled something suggesting it had. At that point, the African-American girl spoke up, stating that although the group was not especially offended, the question was weird, and some people might find it offensive. You just can't assume that every Asian speaks Chinese or Japanese. Well, I didn't, I promptly corrected her. I simply asked if she understood a greeting in either language. Well, why didn't you ask me, she retorted. I could have taken a class. I was speechless. She seemed to be suggesting that if I polled 20 Asian and 20 non-Asian patrons, the non-Asian group would be just as likely to speak an Asian language as their counterparts. Certainly no one with an ounce of common sense would make such an asinine assertion, so how could a college student be making it? Ostensibly, her gripe was that I had made a bigoted generalization akin to all Asians look alike. Nothing could be farther from the truth. I drew a circumstantial conclusion based on observation. Thankfully, millions of people do the same thing every day. When a restaurant patron clutches their throat, bystanders assume they are choking and offer assistance. By her logic, I should not have assumed that anyone at the table spoke English when I first approached it, but I did, and no one faulted me for doing so. My evening weekend employer for the last 2 years, a high-end hotel in Los Angeles, frequently caters to large groups of ethnically, racially, and religiously diverse groups. I pride myself on greeting guests in their native tongue whenever applicable. When I serve esoteric cuisine, I announce it by its culturally common name. Not once has a guest taken offense to this gesture. On the contrary, they are tickled pink that an outsider, an American no less, made the effort to familiarize himself with some facet of their culture. No, every time I found myself at odds with self-deputized officers from the thought police, either as a stand-up columnist, as a newspaper columnist, a stand-up comedian, or simply in conversation, they were always simple-minded Americans marching in lockstep to the canons of political correctness. In most cases, he or she refused to acknowledge the accuracy or validity of my assertion. In all cases, they failed to concede that the U.S. Constitution still guarantees us the right to think, hear, say, and read and print any idea we choose to. Clearly, what began as a well-intentioned effort to enlighten society has become something akin to Christian fundamentalism's secular counterpart. Thank you.